Hello, this is the second of the videos that about the aspects for 2021 and also for, but I think I'm still going to be focusing on the aspects for this month, for January, which are pretty extreme. And we saw the beginnings of what that can mean yesterday. I'm making this video on January the 7th, and yesterday on January the 6th, rioters stormed the Capitol in Washington, D.C. So let's just take a look astrologically at what was going on then. Let's see, what do I want? Let's start here. So that's this screen. This is the astrology for when the riot starts. So you can see that there's all this is at 1:10 p.m. when the riots really got going in Washington, D.C. Prior to that, we saw this whole configuration at 10 a.m. when Trump was speaking over here. We see like the building energy. Now, this group of planets right here is making a challenging aspect to Mars, which is aggression and fighting and fight or flight and like don't tread on me. It's, it's like the male and ego. I'm going to take care of myself and mine. And it's here, Uranus is nearing, it's moving towards Uranus. So it's at the beginning of what is already a very challenging aspect with Mars and Uranus conjunct that is explosive. And it is making a challenging aspect to Jupiter, which is generally positive, but which makes things bigger. Whatever is going on, it makes it bigger. And Saturn, which is restriction. So right here with this combination, we have people getting fed up with what restricts them, with feeling that they are being constrained by society and responding aggressively. And we have some other planets kind of part of the mix in here that make it that heighten the intensity of the situation. Now, the moon is separate, but the moon is making a challenging aspect to these. And then this is Neptune, which Neptune is a planet that we kind of need to be looking at because it is, other than the moon, which changes sign every 2.5 days, Neptune is the only planet that is kind of outside of this configuration. And it really, from day to day, it has some relationship to it, depending upon the position of the sun, really. But Neptune, in the best of all possible worlds, Neptune is, we are all one. We are all spirit, no boundaries. Like really, we are all part of the same energy. There's no real separation between us. We are one. But since Neptune has to do with the destruction of boundaries, it also has to do with things like drugs and alcohol and misinformation. So on a bad day, Neptune is like the alcoholic crackhead parent. Usually one would say mother, but that's not fair. But in any event, screaming at the kids for being hungry or, and throwing things. So Neptune doesn't, that's the bad sort of not being able to perceive boundaries and not being able to perceive what is true. It's very much like the misinformation, the rose-colored glasses. So over the course of the next few weeks, that quality, the quality of both idealism and altruism and spirituality, and the flip side of that coin, which is suspicion and lies and deception of all sorts and misinformation. These are things that play a big role in how people choose to act here, whether they choose to act out of a sense of restraint and the sense of the common good, or whether they choose to react violently. And finding this balance is really the trick that faces all of us in the coming weeks. It's not the situation where there's like one simple action that could be taken. The nature of the aspects are such that it's a constant balancing act. One of the big questions that people are asking is this going to happen again? And astrologically, a lot of it depends upon how this is dealt with, that finding the particular balance between what is right and what is in the common good and the necessary restrictions for that, and not I mean the desire to respond aggressively or harshly is something that can bring about a boomerang effect. So finding that balance, finding the balance of what is right and what serves the common good versus what is just an aggressive response, that's something that faces all of us. So let's take a look at, just quickly, if we can, at some of the aspects coming up. Let's look in particular, we'll look at the new moon, but let's look at the day around the inauguration. So just before the inauguration, it is the quarter moon. And those aspects the aspects on that day are really challenging. Everything is there's nothing really outside of this little group. These two are just points, they aren't planets. There is, my guess is that the actual day of the inauguration is likely to be calm, but but prior to that, possibly even just the day before, there is likely to be, the aspects are highly charged and emotional, and there is nothing actually that helps break outside of this kind of like tightly wound ball of frustration that is represented by this square, challenging aspect that brings in all the planets except for Neptune and to some degree Venus. Now this raises the possibility that there could be a certain altruism or a coming together, a spiritual approach to the situation, if you will. But it does also raise the potential specter of people completely buying into their own view of reality, whether or not it has any basis, whether or not it actually responds, whether or not it actually relates to what is true. That is the danger we face. And prior to that, the new moon on the 12th has again those aspects once again being highlighted in a way that doesn't actually bring a lot of ease. All right, well, we'll keep an eye on this situation, astrologically and otherwise. I will talk a little bit more about the aspects in the coming weeks, and then we'll move on to the aspects for the whole year, which are a lot brighter. When I made that video, I thought that the inauguration was on January 21st. It turns out that the inauguration is on January 20th. That is, in fact, the day that is something of an astrological, tightly wound crucible, difficult configuration. So that is likely to be a stressful day. It doesn't necessarily mean that it will be a terrible day. It is certainly a highly charged day. Given the particular kinds of aspects happening on that day, it could be a day in which there is other expressions of violence. But it is just as likely that it is a day that is marked by restriction, where there are a lot of where as opposed where of the two sides of the configuration, one of them is an explosive, violent expression of rage and outrage and a sense of being personally affronted, and the other is social restraint and an eye for the good of society, that is imposing limits for the good of society. Throughout all of the month, the push and pull, and the not necessarily easy push and pull between those two energies, the affronted ego and outraged sense of an attacked self versus what is the good of society. That's the particular fight that is kind of erupting throughout the month. With Neptune kind of like tossing in a few pieces of misinformation or misdirection, or possibly even sometimes tossing in some altruism. But it is entirely possible that on the day of the election, of the inauguration, given how compact the aspects are, that it's just going to be very highly organized and very tightly watched, and very difficult for anything to break out of the particular structure that's put in place. Let's hope so. All right. Next time, as I said, I might say a little bit more about the month of January, and then we will move on to the happier aspects coming up. All right. Take care. Bye.